memory of Pete and Bonnie Axthelm. And this year, we are thrilled to have alongside us Nancy Axthelm and Megan Brown. Their legacy, Pete and Bonnie's legacy, has been stewarded very well by their sister Nancy and Pete's daughter Megan. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all of your support and presence. Nancy and Megan, along with Matt Brown and Stephen Axthelm, have worked hard over the years to continue the legacy and the impact of Pete and Bonnie Axthelm, and we're forever grateful for the work that you do to continue that here at Marquette University. Bonnie Axthelm was a groundbreaking executive. She was one of the first women to rise to leadership in corporate America. She served as the head of marketing and corporate affairs for 3M across Europe. She broke barriers and paved the way for women in business. Pete Axthelm was one of the most well-respected sports journalists in America. As a visionary in his field, Pete was one of the first to transition from print journalism to broadcast, covering the NFL and beyond. Pete also championed equity in the newsroom, particularly for women. His legacy continues to inspire us today.
Pete Axthelm was a columnist, television sports commentator, and author like no other. Working for Sports Illustrated, Newsweek, ESPN, and NBC, Pete turned sports reporting into something enlightening, insightful, and creative.
Let's turn over to Pete Axthelm now. We go back to your glory of Thanksgiving. They take you well with the Lions, and that's so true. Yes, Tom, my proudest thing here, but I've got to keep the pressure on. You're no pressure.
Axe, as he was called, was a New Yorker at heart, but he created an unwavering bond with Marquette's own Al McGuire while researching his book, The City Game, considered the best description of street basketball played in New York City during the 60s and 70s. Pete Axthelm used his gift in writing to be the difference in the world of sports journalism. And his legacy continues to have an impact on Marquette students today through the generous support of the Axthelm family. The Pete and Bonnie Axthelm Memorial Scholarship was established in 1994 to pay tribute to the lives of Pete and his sister Bonnie, a notable marketing executive in her own right. Each year, this program awards scholarships to outstanding Diedrich College students with an expressed interest in pursuing a career in sports journalism. And it brings to campus notable sports journalists who inform, inspire, and entertain in the tradition of the great Pete Axthelm.
Pete and Bonnie Axthelm were remarkable individuals and trailblazers in their respective fields. The Marquette University, and particularly the Dietrich College of Communication, have been blessed over the years to hold the Axthelm Lecture here on campus. We are forever grateful to the generosity of Nancy Axthelm and the Axthelm Charitable Foundation because we have been able to award numerous students the Axthelm Award over the years. This year's recipients are Matt Bells and Mia Thoreau. They are both deeply involved in the Marquette Wire and have expressed their enthusiasm today to hear from our speaker, Lisa Byington. Mia Thoreau is a journalism major with minors in sports communication and Spanish. She is from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Mia sees sports as a force for change and shares the Axthelm's family dedication to equity and representation in sports. Matt, who is from Kelowna, Illinois, but calls Milwaukee join me in congratulating Matt and Mia. And now I'd like to invite Matt and Mia up to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Berg. Thank you to Marquette, Easier College Communication for this. Like Dr. Berg mentioned, my name is Matt Baltz. I'm a junior journalism major here in the College of Communication. Today we've got one of the most accomplished personalities in the sports media industry in attendance here to have a conversation with us and share her story. This individual made a lot of waves in the broadcasting realm over the past couple of years, including being named the first female full-time television play-by-play announcer for a major men's professional sports team, becoming the first female play-by-play voice to work the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and she called the first round's games for CBS and Turner Sports in 2021. In 2022, the Big Ten Network created an award which is presented annually to the most outstanding female broadcaster in a Big Ten Network Student U program.
Thank you, Matt, and I just want to reiterate my thank you to the Axthelm family for being here today. My name is Mia, and I'm a sophomore here in the College of Communication studying journalism and sports communication. While Lisa's long list of accolades speaks for itself, her impact goes far beyond just firsts and broken records. She represents everything the Pete and Bonnie Axthelm Memorial Scholarship honors: a bold voice in sports journalism, a commitment to storytelling, and a dedication to paving the way for others. As the first woman to be named a full-time play-by-play announcer for a major men's professional sports team, she hasn't just broken barriers, she's redefined what's possible. And for students like me, and so many other faces I see in the audience today, young women hoping to make a career in sports media, Lisa isn't just a role model for us. She's proof that we women belong in the booth, on the camera, behind the microphone, and at the front of the story. Lisa's presence in Milwaukee, both with the Bucks, and as part of this larger sports community, has made such a difference. She's opened doors, and because of that, people like Matt and I walk through them with purpose, passion, and the courage to dream even bigger. It is my honor to introduce someone who continues to inspire the next generation, your Axthelm Memorial Lecture speaker, Lisa Byington.
Usually broadcast games with a headset on, so I don't get to move, but this is more suited for the way I like to talk and address the crowds. I like to move and shift around and stuff. I think it's the former athlete in me. Mia and Matt, that was beautiful. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The Axthelm family, thank you for just presenting this year in and year out to all of these students. I think that, you know, with my story and a lot of people in this room, all we need is a chance, and all we need is an opportunity. All we need is a door open, and that's what this award and this scholarship money and this opportunity does for all of these students here. For the few I got to meet beforehand, you guys were delightful, very thoughtful, very engaged. I really appreciated that. It is an honor for me to be here. I was looking at the former list of winners, and so connected, not only with the list of winners, you know, Grace is here, and she was instrumental to connecting me to this day and this event. You know, Jenny Fisher, I run into her all the time in the NBA, you know, and she's one of the former winners, but also the people who spoke, and just it speaks to the Axthelm family about what they meant, because some of the best in the sports world got to speak year in and year out. So it is, when I say it's an absolute honor, it is an absolute honor to be here today. I am kind of fighting a cold, so bear with me a little bit. It's also called end of the year, playoff time, getting through a college season, and a whole NBA season. So if I have to pause for a second and take a drink of water, bear bear with me on that. Because I'm a dorky Northwestern University Medill School journalism student, I did do a slide presentation for this to kind of make it a little bit more fun. Here's a fun fact about me. I actually almost went to Marquette instead of Northwestern. I was recruited by Jim Jaber, was the head coach. Terry Mitchell was the assistant at the time, and loved it. But as recruiting goes, sometimes the timing was just a little bit off, and Northwestern had offered me first, and Marquette was waiting a little bit, and I wanted to take the offer that was presented to me. But I have always loved this campus, always loved this school, and always held a special place in my heart to Marquette. So it's really cool to be in and around this university here in my professional life. All right, so to get you to understand, let's see if this works. I want to introduce you to me, okay? Who is Lisa? That was pre-Marquette Northwestern offers, obviously. This was middle school Lisa. I played at West Middle School in Portage, Michigan, so I grew up in the state of Michigan. And you guys can laugh, that's fine. Like, it's kind of a crazy picture. Maybe this will help you laugh. Check out the bangs, like, total 90s bangs, right? The knee pads, I think that was like a Dick's Sporting Goods special that I got on sale. These high tops, my goodness, I think they weighed like 20 pounds. I mean, they're heavy, you know. The shoe technology has improved considerably. And what is that for? I mean, no ball protection, out so everyone can just steal it away, right? And of course the mouth open. You knew I was concentrating when I had my mouth open. So that is me. And when I grew up, and when I watched sports on TV, you know, I was not like a lot of the broadcasters. I did not grow up and think, oh, I'm listening for the broadcasters and I'm going to be that play-by-play, and I knew that at the age of 7 or 8. When I watched sports, I actually watched the athletes, because I actually thought I was going to play sports for the rest of my life. So these are the kind of people, when I turn on the TV, I watch. You know this guy? He coached the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah. So I grew up in the state of Michigan, and my dad went to Michigan State, so we watched a lot of Scott Skiles games, Michigan State. I don't have my socks pulled up to my knees like Scott does there, but I eventually did, because I thought it was really cool, because Scott did it. Of course, I watched the Bad Boys, right, growing up in the state of Michigan. And when you watch the Bad Boys, of course, who doesn't watch Michael Jordan in the 90s? Tiger Woods also was pretty big in the 90s and the early 2000s. But what do you guys notice about what you saw and what I was watching on TV growing up?
They're all men.
All men? Is that what I heard? Yeah. It was hard to watch women on TV. And think of how much that's different now in 2025. And you can pick any day of the week, whether it's streaming or on linear television, and you can watch women's sports on TV. But those were the people that I watched, those were the people I had to look up to, were all men playing sports, not women playing sports. So think about this. We live in the greatest women's sports era, now in 2025. And this is what little Lisa would have gotten to see on TV if she was growing up in middle school now. So I'll introduce you to my parents, because they are really part of my story, a really big part of my story. Can you pick my mom out in any of these photos? Anybody want to take a guess? No? I won't be offended. No guesses?
Nancy Paul.
What's that?
Nancy Paul.
Nancy Paul. That's a good guess. Actually, same row. I circled her like 10,000 times, so you wouldn't confuse her with anybody else. That's my mom, Linda Pippinger. So she grew up pre-Title IX, and that meant she didn't get to play sports. And so I was really one day trying to ask my mom, what was that like? not getting an opportunity to play sports. So she showed me her yearbook. This was a page in her yearbook. They were I'm sure Donna is a wonderful human being. But I turned the page and I literally gasped. I went, a Betty Crocker Homemaker Award? And that was a real thing. And not just for everyone, but for who? The senior girls. Because only girls could be a Betty Crocker Homemaker, correct? So then I wanted to dive more into this yearbook of my mom's, right? And realized home economics, which is essentially like cooking, sewing class, is a fancy name for that. An exciting experience for who? Again, the girls, right? Because boys can't cook, boys can't sew. The sewing machine, again, to who? The girls. And again, these are all photos from my mom's yearbook. 1971, we got closer to Title IX. Title IX happened in 1972 that allowed greater opportunities for women to play sports. And as we got closer to that, there were some opportunities for women to play sports. Track opportunities, maybe some basketball opportunities. But up at the top there, you'll see, I circled it for a reason. Let's read it. Sprints are close, exciting, just like the boys. So even when women were getting opportunities back in 1971, the yearbook editors still could not help themselves but to compare it to the boys' experience. Maybe the boys could take lessons from these women sprinting at this time in 1971. Anybody know what the GAA is? So my mom was involved. No one, I didn't really expect anyone in this room to know a whole lot. But this was a group of women here. It's called the Girls Athletic Association. It met every Monday night after school. Points were earned in weekly meetings. This was the only opportunity for my mom to play sports. Think about that. Once a day, once a week, and that was it. And it was a club. And so they could bowl. This is my favorite with the cut-off jean shorts. Play a little basketball there. But these were the only opportunities that my mom had. And it's significant to point this out because my mom didn't know if she was going to have a son or a daughter, and it didn't matter to her. But she wanted her son and her daughter to have better opportunities than what she had. And that's why I'm sharing it with you today. I asked her, I said, when you're not playing sports, like, did you ever envision yourself playing sports? Because part of following a dream is seeing yourself doing something, envisioning yourself, the hope, right, of getting to that moment. And this was her quote. We watched sports, but they were just the guys playing. So you never envisioned yourself doing that because you never saw it. And that's my mom's story. My dad, you've got two choices here. Anybody? Who is Lisa's dad in this high school photo?
To the left.
The guy on the left and the guy in the middle. Guesses?
Left.
The left? Why, because he's short?
Down there.
This guy on the left. Do you know where Lisa is? This is my high school photo. Oh, I heard guessing number 11. Any other guesses? You guys are right. Number 11. My dad was my high school coach for basketball. We were able to compete for some state championships. It was awesome. He also was like my little league softball coach, soccer coach. He was everything. And you know, it's the gender allies of this story is equally as important. It's not just a woman's story or a girl's story. It's how do we support each other kind of story. My dad, you can see he's obviously very supportive of supporting women in sports. He was very supportive of my journey, and I needed that. I needed my mom's story, and I needed my dad's story to make this work. But he was always, you can tell, we're best friends still to this day, and you can tell in that little league photo, you know, how close we are and how much fun we have. So it's very significant to have parents who support you. Not just parents, you don't need parents. Friends, family, teachers, professors, right? Who have that support circle. You need to find those in your lives. Who's going to support you? Who's going to bring out the best in you? For me, it was mom and dad. Mom was a third grade teacher. She taught elementary school and middle school, but she finished out with this group in third grade. I've already talked about my dad being a high school coach. They were both educators. That's me graduating from Northwestern. I was so happy. I'm like, I don't have to do school again if I don't want to. But these two, without me even realizing it, actually taught me one of the greatest lessons. And it wasn't to see boundaries, and it wasn't to see ceilings. And so I showed you that old picture of me playing basketball. I got another fun one. You guys ready for this one? Because this is me too. You can laugh. I mean, I look ridiculous. You guys are holding back a little bit. I showed this soccer photo because it was right around the time and the age that in recess in elementary school, I would go out and play soccer, and I was the only girl playing with the boys. And I was about this age. And so I would go home, and my mom and dad would ask me, Lisa, how was school today? And I would say, oh, it was great. We did this, this, and this. Oh, how was recess? Oh, it was great. I played soccer. Who'd you play soccer with? Well, Billy, Bob, Steve, Jim, and Craig, and never named a girl's name. And they just nodded and they said, that's great. Keep doing it. And it's a very small gesture, but do you know how much that meant to me to know that I was the only girl doing something as simple as playing soccer out in recess, but my parents said it was okay. And it was one of the smallest lessons that led to one of the biggest lessons for me, and I didn't even realize what they were doing at the time. Because at the time, they were teaching me, Lisa, you don't know any boundaries, and you don't know any ceilings. And how valuable is that as you're getting older? So this is me. We talked about this in middle school. This is me. No boundaries. Could play soccer at recess with the boys. That grew into this at high school, a high school athlete. Good enough to get a scholarship paid for at Northwestern for basketball. Remember, this is a kid whose mom didn't even have a chance to play sports when she was growing up. I was able to play not one, but 2 sports at Northwestern. I played basketball and soccer. These people are all me. And this is also me. Do you see the timeline? And I didn't see it until I got older and started to connect to it, right? The lessons of this is okay, the lessons of kind of push me out the door and go this direction. And you don't realize what you can become until sometimes people see it in you, And then you have the passion, the hope, the perseverance to pursue something that has never happened before. I wouldn't be here with that kind of opportunity if it wasn't for my mom and dad presenting it to me in that way. I showed you the athletes that I watched on TV. Who do you think are the broadcasters? When I was paying attention to the broadcasters, what do you think they looked like? Dick Enberg, so he was one of the speakers, right, for this. Wonderful broadcaster. John Madden, legendary, right? You get a video game, you are legendary for the rest of your life. Mark Albert, Vern Lundquist, Dick Vitale, all just wonderful broadcasters, right? And they've really carved a niche, doing their respective sports, their respective jobs. But again, what do you notice about what I was watching on TV? There was no example of anyone that looked like me. Contrast that to now. Robin Roberts is awesome. She was the first, people ask, who's the first woman that you watched on TV that you really wanted to aspire to be? I loved Robin Roberts. She was a former basketball player. She has a camera presence. That's what I talk about. Have a camera presence when you're standing there. Be believable, right? Robin Roberts checks all the boxes with that. Beth Mowins has made waves, with the NFL. Still remember her Monday night game that she called. Lisa Salters is a black woman. The lead for the NBA and the NFL. Doris Burke, here this article was pulled in 2020. She was the first woman to call the NBA Finals on radio. Now she's the first woman to call the NBA Finals on television. Kate Scott is the voice for the Philadelphia 76ers. That hire was made just shortly after the Milwaukee Bucks hired me. And Jess Mendoza doing her thing with Major League Baseball. So again, think of the progress that we have changed. And all of these people have different stories, but maybe a little bit similar to me, where they just were a little bit crazy and thinking they could do something that no one had done before. And they had a platform of people who encouraged them to do that. Finally, Tiffany Green, a black woman, as a play-by-play, and she's been doing some football as well. So my dream, maybe you guys have heard of this, I was able to design a Milwaukee Bucks hat this year. It was a big honor. Doc Rivers, Damian Lillard, and me. I was like, really? I'm really, really honored to do it. And on the inside, you get choices. I mean, it's amazing how many things you can choose on a hat. And on the inside, you can choose, like if you tip your hat and you're literally looking on the inside, I chose background noise for the inside of my hat. And you're thinking, man, Lisa's talking about being in the forefront and taking risks, and now she's telling us that we're going to be background noise. And this is what I mean. My dream is that a female voice on a men's game becomes so normal, it's background noise. So I want you to think about that. How many times do we have a game on in the room, and it literally is background noise? We don't think about the announcers. We don't think about who's calling the game, and I'm guilty of it as anyone. But when there is a female voice on a quote-unquote men's game, football, men's basketball, I'll stop and I'll ask myself, who's that woman calling the game? And that's not background noise. So when we stop asking, who's that female announcer calling the game? And we're starting to be recognized for the job we do, not who is doing the job. And then we lose those little adjectives, the first and the female. And I understand the importance of that. Trust me, if we don't have first and female, then we don't lose those adjectives, right? And we don't lose the opportunities for other people who come after. But once we check all those boxes, then we've truly, truly made progress. I don't think it's going to happen, the background noise, in the next 2 years or 5 years. I think it's honestly going to have to be a generational change. But everyone in this room can be a part of it, for sure. Men, women, boys, girls. It's not going to be easy. This is from 2015. Congrats on being a sideline reporter on Big Ten Network, despite not being attractive.
Oh.
It's an actual tweet that I got. I said, thank you very much. Because we know that the only thing about being a sideline reporter, the only important thing is to be attractive. But apparently this person didn't like my hat or my coat or something that day. So I share these with you because we still have a long ways to go. Can you go back to volleyball? This is from 2020. We can't stand a woman's voice on football. And what's ironic to me about a comment like this is male announcers can cross over and do men's sports and women's sports, but female announcers can't. Stick in your, it's like a nice way of saying stay in the kitchen, you know? If you're gonna be a female announcer, stick to the women's sports. Stay on your side. Don't cross over. And so that's why I wanted to share that particular tweet with you, to share the hypocrisy that we still live in. I thought I was actually getting a compliment on this one. This happened a couple years ago when I was calling the men's NCAA tournament. Lisa, I've been following sports on TV for 60 years. Her play-by-play call of the TCU Arizona game was the best I've ever heard. From who? Has to quantify it, right? Which is ironic because there's actually no other female sportscaster calling the men's NCAA tournament. So I was looking at that like, that's interesting. And then finally, when I was hired by the Milwaukee Bucks, obviously people have different opinions on it. This guy obviously was so sick about this, like why a woman? Seriously. It was a nice picture of Zora and Marcus and I, and but what I love about this is his handle, Popular Loner. It's nice. Go on with your lone self, right? I do get positive posts and tweets and comments, but those aren't as fun or as illuminating, right? To see, you're a great broadcaster, we loved your call on this. I think it's important to share some of the not so good stuff that we have to deal with, and some of the hurdles that we still have to overcome. How did I get here? 2 parents set the stage for me, believed in me, carved out an athletic opportunity. I started to dream big about sports and became a sports broadcaster because I didn't want to give up sports. That's kind of cool. That's on the New York Times front page of the sports section in 2021 when the Bucks hired me. I still have the Bucks actually frame that for me, and I have it in my office. It's very, very cool. My question, though, is where do we go from here? I ask myself that because there's always new mountains to climb, there's always new challenges to be had. And I share my story knowing that everybody has a challenge. For me, it was overcoming some gender stereotypes. For you guys, for some of the men in this room, it might be stepping into a world that you've never done before. Getting that first job out of college. We all have these different challenges. We all have barriers where you feel like you're in a tight room and all you see are the walls and the ceilings. And so somehow you have to believe in yourself. And I don't know if that comes from it. It's probably a partnership from within and from your small circle of people. I don't know who they are. But those are the people that are going to break you out of those barriers and not see the walls and not see the ceiling. I know there's some people in here, especially people in the front row, who are thinking about maybe their first jobs. So I'll share with you, my first job was in Alpena, Michigan. Does anybody know where Alpena, Michigan is? No? It's all the way up north, just before you get to the Upper Peninsula. And it was Sports Market 211, and they stopped counting at 212. Now they measure market size based on population. So New York is 1, LA is 2, Chicago is 3, Alpena was 212. And it was just above Glendive, Montana. And I shared with these finalists this story about, I wouldn't change it for the world. I made $14,000 a year, and I had to do everything. From picking up the camera, shooting high school football highlights, driving around. And you can imagine northern Michigan, the high schools you gotta go to on a Friday night, they're not close to each other. It's like a 30-minute drive in between high schools. And sometimes if you get a first down play, that's your highlight for the day. And you gotta keep it moving because you have to get to 3 other schools. But I wouldn't change it for the world because it really made me believe I wasn't making a lot of money and I was working a lot of hours. And guess what? I was loving it. And I realized it's not about the money, it's not about the prestige, it's about the work that you put in day and day out. And I just really, really loved it. And that was my first job. And to get to some of these other great opportunities, NCAA tournament, calling the NBA, that's not an overnight thing either. Like I just didn't roll out of bed from my Alpena, Michigan job that became, an announcer for the NCAA tournament. It doesn't happen that way. You become an NBA announcer or a World Cup announcer. It doesn't happen that way. But I want to share a story. You got to find those opportunities. So I was working in Lansing, Michigan at an affiliate there. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to drive whatever it is, ended up being 11, 12 hours to Atlanta. It was 2007. I'm going to go to the Final Four. I'm going to find my way. They have all these, Scott Kuykendall's here. Everyone say that to Scott first of all. He knows all the Final Four parties. TV executives are there, head coaches are there. So I decided, I'm going to find myself. I'm going to force my way. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get myself into one of these parties and introduce myself to a CBS executive and tell them I'm going to work the NCAA tournament. And so I found Mike Oresco, who was with CBS at the time. I had my little makeshift business card, and I was, again, a reporter in Lansing, Michigan at the time. And I introduced myself, and I said, hey, my name is Lisa, and we talked for a little bit, and I gave him my card, and I said, I'm gonna work the NCAA tournament someday. You can imagine his reaction, because no one wants to work the NCAA tournament, right? Like, I'd be the only one who's asking to work the NCAA tournament. He took my card. And then a few months later, I had a New York number call my cell phone. And I thought, oh, this is my great opportunity. It was CBS, but it was CBS Sports Network. And they were asking me to be a sideline reporter on a Division II football package on Thursday nights. And it wasn't the NCAA tournament, but I was ecstatic to get that opportunity. So I said yes, because when you say yes to opportunity, you never know when the next opportunity will be. 10 years later, so 2017, I got an email that I almost deleted, because on the subject title, I thought it was spam, talking about my cable or something like that. It said Turner, CBS, almost deleted it, and I decided to open it up. And it was the email that I had been waiting for. They asked me to be a sideline reporter for the NCAA tournament. So quick math. First time I introduced myself, 2007. When I got the email, 2017. 10 years, a 10-year gap between the ask and the delivery. So my point of telling that story is, you're not always going to get your dream job. And you're definitely not going to get your dream job the next day. And it might not be the next week, the next year, or in 5 years. Sometimes your dream job email and your phone call comes in a 10-year gap. But you have to bury your head, you work hard, you be a good teammate, and you trust and believe that it will happen. And I know it will for all of you guys and all you aspiring journalists out here. Thank you. And I am willing to take some questions too, right?
Yeah, we didn't moderate. Okay. Okay. You can sit down.
I only had one, gulp of water. That's pretty good. Questions? It's a quiet group. Go.
So were you working in Lansing, Michigan from that 10-year gap as well, like 07 to 2017?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was actually in Lansing from 2000, almost a 10-year span, but not during that whole 10-year time. So I started in Lansing, Michigan, the CBS affiliate there, 2001, to about 2011. And then Big Ten Network started in 2007. And so let's remember, this was a conference network and no one knew if this would work, right? So everybody was watching. The SEC network didn't exist, the ACC network didn't exist. So everyone was watching the Big Ten Conference and saying, do people really want to watch conference sports 24/7? So there was no roadmap. So Big Ten Network came about in 2007. I was in Lansing, Michigan, which is where Michigan State, close to Michigan was. It helped me, location helped me to get a sideline job. They asked me to be a studio host. Eventually, that's how I started doing play-by-play. It was for Big Ten Network. It was a little bit of right time, right opportunity, but also saying yes and doing a good enough job that you keep getting asked to do some work. But I would say during that time when I was freelancing for Big Ten Network, I was also still full-time with my old job in Lansing. And so that was 2007 is when I started at Big Ten Network.
It appears to me, and I don't know much about this, your job, but it appears to me like doing the play-by-play is a very niche skill. So if you haven't seen any sportscasters that you could aspire to be, how did you practice this skill, and how did you figure out that that was something that you were good at?
Yeah,
Great, I should just keep the mic. Good question. You just kind of, for me, it was learning on the job. I know we've got some aspiring play-by-plays here in the front row, but again, it was an executive at Big Ten Network, again, because it was like kind of the first few years of this network, they were filling things out. They didn't have like a whole lineup of talent, and they said, hey, you did a really great job for the sideline for us. Would you like to try play-by-play? And I said, yeah, you know, I do like anchoring for the local news every weekend. Like, how different can these have been? No, it's really different. And it was. And my first play-by-play game was actually Michigan State, Indiana women's basketball, because it was in Lansing, Michigan. And I just remember sitting there and I'm almost just like watching the game, because I just love to watch basketball, and I was like, oh, I need to say how many fouls on this player, how many points, like that's my job, you know? So it was a learning experience. It was a learning experience on the job, but I just loved it. I love being a small part of one of the most exciting things that we can go to is a sporting event, you know? And to be able to work on a team, that's also what I love about working a game. You know, you've got so many people behind the scenes. You have your analysts you work with, and sometimes a sideline reporter, producer, director, graphics, you name it. Camera people, like there is a small army of people that you get to work with. I miss that, and not playing sports anymore. I love that. And I enjoy being a small voice to the narrative of what's happening. And I can always say when I watch games, you're doing homework. How many people can say that, right? That's what's so cool about being in sports. I can literally sit and watch games. Like I got home for the Bucks game on Sunday, and I watched the end of the Masters. And even though I'm not like dying to be a golf announcer, you can learn everything about announcers, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, by watching any sport. You know, I can just sit down and say I'm doing homework by every game I tuned into. So it was learning on the job and learning fast on the job.
Did you have mentors? And who were they in this world of no female announcers?
Yeah.
And what were some of the, you want to do this kind of barriers you had?
Yeah, you have to ignore them. Don't read the comments, you know. Actually, the best piece of advice is don't read the comments because of the good and the bad. Like everyone thinks about the bad, right? I showed you the bad. And I said, I do get plenty of good. There's enough Lisa Byington fans out there. That's not the fun part to show you guys. But you don't want to write off of that, right? Like there's a real thing about like reading all that good stuff about you and getting high off of all that. It's like with athletics too, with athletes. Like there can be such a roller coaster and feeding off of social media and oh, this person thinks I'm the greatest and this person doesn't, you know? So, getting past the barriers is, I acknowledge the first female stuff when I make talks like this. And anytime, I call a Bucks game, I'm putting on a headset and I'm just a broadcaster, I'm not thinking about that until I'm reminded about it and I get questions about it or when I have to speak to it, And so I think that's part of it. You ignore the noise, the good and the bad. And then you also realize that who you are. And for me, I'm a broadcaster. And I understand the responsibility of being the first and female in all these job opportunities because you have to have a first and a female to have just women working, So I get that. Some of my mentors, I really appreciate, two men actually, I'll start there. So Mike Tirico and Brian Anderson, Brian, a Milwaukee, Wisconsin guy. I love their style. They're both so versatile. In particular, like Mike Tirico, I think he just hosted the Today Show the other day or something. And they were joking that it's the only thing that he hasn't done. Brian Anderson has been so supportive to me. But the two of them with their style, they're just so easy to listen to. Like when I talk about background noise, they're the ultimate background noise to me. They're, the ultimate teammates. They work well with whoever they're working with and whatever sports they do. And, I love watching different kind of play-by-plays. kids, Beth Mullins is obviously, I pointed her out, that she has made, great strides for women in this business. And I'll share with you, she did her Monday night NFL game. It was actually the same week that I was doing my first college football game for Big Ten Network. And I watched her Monday night game and thinking, wow, that's really cool. And, I can't imagine what it's like to be her Tuesday morning. So the morning after she did her Monday night football game, I got a text from Beth Mullins, and it said, "You're up next." So how cool is that? Like, she knew, I didn't tell her that my first college football game is coming up at the end of the week, but she knew, she paid attention to that, and I thought that was really cool that she reached out to me to show that support. So there's a lot of people, I mentioned my parents, they're not broadcasters, but they're certainly mentors to me.
Did you ever kind of have second thoughts or have a time where you considered changing your passion in the period of 10 years where you got the, have you asked or received your...
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Like local news, I already told you that I was rich working in local news, right? $14,000 in Alpena, and I think I said I was 10 years in Lansing. I think I didn't surpass 30,000 in Lansing until years like 9 and 10. So I was reeling in the bucks, and I remember it was actually, so I was in Lansing, and we were still a little bit old school, so we went tape to tape machines, right? And all of our local sportscasts we had to archive from the week before, and so it fell on me being the weekend sports anchor. I had to do that every Sunday night, so I would anchor the 6 o'clock sports and then the 11 o'clock sports, and then after the 11 o'clock sports, I would have to anchor the week prior to everything that we aired on the air, which you can imagine that takes a little while. So it ended up being like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, and it was February, and it was Lansing, Michigan, so you can imagine, like, it was cold, it was snowy. I walked out, my car was the only one in the parking lot. It was covered in snow, and I had already put in like 12 to 13 hours that day, and I just was thinking, does anybody care about what I just did for that day? And I don't want to try to sound dramatic. I don't know if it was like the moonlight, lighting up my car in the parking lot, but also there's like this, like the angels came singing. But I answered my own question, and I said, Lisa, do you care? And I realized that it goes back to what I said earlier. It's not about the money. It's not about all the hours. It's the passion. It's the job. And I realized that if your first answer to your question, does anybody care, is not yourself, then something's wrong, and you need to change, whether it's a job, whether it's a location, whether it's what you do. And so it was that moment that I changed. And it was really great timing, because I was trying to get to bigger markets. I was applying to Indianapolis and Detroit, and I was getting all kinds of no's at the local news level. And you know what happened when I finally just relaxed and enjoyed like where I was and enjoyed the job for the job? All of a sudden all these opportunities came. Big Ten Network came, asked me to do things, that led to another opportunity, So, and that's not a coincidence. I really believe that.
What is like the greatest piece of advice or like an inspirational quote that like a fellow like broadcaster or like a fellow like sports analyst has like passed down to you and has like motivated you more, like inspired you to like improve your game even more or like make an impact more?
Listen to everything that Scott Hagenhill tells you. That's 2 references for Scott here in this talk. I have my own quote, and it is, don't let someone else's no be your no. And we're all going to get them, right? And we probably all have had them. And we're all going to continue to get them. And so I think the most important thing is, again, to define your own path. And if you truly believe you can do something, I was getting no's to larger markets, and when I made that first ask to work at the NCAA tournament in 2007, it was a no, but it also kind of was a not now. And I asked every year since then. And so it's persistence, right? It's belief in what you can do, it's persistence, and it's hard work, and again, it's being a good teammate. I can't stress that enough. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in here that are involved in a lot of different occupations. It's probably quite similar to the journalism world. The broadcasting world is big, but it's also small. And so you want to be known as a hard worker and a good teammate. Because word travels fast, and if you can get someone advocating for you, that's gold. Good questions.
What was the adjustment process like going from a majority sideline freelance reporter to being at the variety of sports at the scale you're doing it now?
Yeah, as a play-by-play, going from sideline to play-by-play, it's huge. It's funny because actually the Big East tournament that was shortened because of the COVID pandemic. That was the last time that I was a sideline reporter, and I was working the St. John's Creighton game that went one half before the Big East shut it down because every conference tournament was shutting it down. And Mike Anderson was the coach at St. John's at the time, and I remember walking up to him and thinking, this could be my last interview. And I was thinking for the season, not forever. It ended up being my last interview ever was 2020. The COVID pandemic shot everything down, and especially for sideline reporters. And so it really was 2020, 2021 where I got a higher volume of just play-by-play because of that. Because we really couldn't be on site. So it really didn't make sense, to hire sideline reporters. So that opportunity was taken away. You really kind of dive into the other opportunity for play-by-play. But preparation-wise, it's completely different. They're both really, really important roles, but completely different. And completely different depending on what sport you're talking about. Football, there's 1,000 players to know, 1,000 rules to know, 1,000 storylines to know. And I'll tell you, when I go from football to basketball, I'm like, oh, you have 12 players, that's it, but I think it's just to master the skill is to watch it. I say that I turn on the TV a lot and watch a lot of people do it, whether it's sideline or play-by-play. And then that's one thing. And then it's getting feedback. If you guys are courageous enough to get good, honest feedback, not like you end the game and everyone's like, oh, good job, you did a good job. That doesn't make you better. You need to find the one person or the two people in your industry that gives you good, honest feedback that's going to make you improve and be better people and be better professionals. And if you can find those kind of people, then it's easy to kind of grow in an industry and job that you don't know a whole lot about.
I have a question for all three of you. What is the phone call that you want to get in 10 years? And so for the students, it's really a question about what is your dream job at this point? What are you sort of envisioning? And for Lisa, it's sort of, I guess, what is the apex? What would be your crowning achievement?
And I guess I'll start. I'd say my dream for phone call in 10 years would probably be a beat reporter for some publication, the MLB team, if the journalist had a call and said, hey, I want you to beat report for the Milwaukee Brewers beach down in Arizona for spring training tomorrow. I did it, so I'd probably say that would be my dream phone call in 10 years.
Yeah, mine would be very similar. I've really developed a love for writing over the years, so definitely be reporting for a paper or a team or something like that, but telling the human interest stories or the investigative stories, so more of that side because I don't feel like we are telling those stories enough in sports. So that would be my dream job, and I still have a love for sideline reporting as well, so either one of those.
I love the NBA Finals, or the NCAA National Championship, obviously. Those are two areas that, would just be a dream to call. But I gotta say this, I got a great job. I got a great job right now. I'm the Milwaukee Bucks television play-by-play. I get to call Giannis and Dame every night. They give me this organization. It's a wonderful organization to work for. And when they hired me, they said, we want you to do some of these big national opportunities. We don't want to keep that from you. And what employer says that? So not only do I have this great job here in Milwaukee, but I'm still able to do things like the NCAA tournament. And so it kind of goes back to the local news thing. Like I'm I'm not thinking about what I don't have, I'm appreciating what I do, and I've got it pretty good.
What was your professional outlook going from graduating at Northwestern to ending up doing local news in Michigan? And what advice would you have for people who are or will soon be in that sort of position?
I was dying to make $14,000 a year working on Pete and Michigan. I said, please let that be my job out of college. No, that wasn't my dream. At the time, I really wanted to be a sports anchor for SportsCenter, because that was like the big show. And, like just the nod of heads, how many people would watch like the reruns of SportsCenter every morning, and it would be the same thing, but I would watch it like 4 or 5 times, and that's what I wanted to do. And it was the advice that I was given when obviously SportsCenter was calling, right when I graduated. The advice I was given was, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So Lisa, do the work, again, be a good teammate, and pay your dues, And so take this Alpena, Michigan job and enjoy it and make the most of it. And so I think that was some of the best advice, because it really is not where you start. It is where it's where you get to, and it's where that road is going to take you to. Because I hate to be dream breakers here, but all you guys are not going to get your dream job right out of college. I'm sorry to say. Maybe the second stop, you will, but not right out of college. And it's going to be a grind. And it's going to be hard. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel, man, I went to school to do this, and no one is picking me up. Grace can imagine, right? Grace is now with the NBA now, but she had to piece together a lot of different things. And there's going to be moments you guys are all going to have to piece together your life, okay? And you might have to have multiple jobs while you're piecing together that life, and that's okay, but again, it's all part of the journey. And then you can sit up here one day and talk to your Marquette students, right, 10 years down the line, when you guys are all, making millions of dollars and stuff, and you can say, hey, you know what, this is what happened because I was patient, and I worked hard, and I did things the right way. Yeah.
So when you mentioned about doing things the right way, in terms of versatility and things like that, with writing and broadcasting and sideline reporting, what do you think? Is there a lot of commonality between when you see sports reporting and the sideline aspect of it on broadcast, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you can make more of a connection with writing and maybe sideline reporting than you can with play-by-play. Because play-by-play, it's unpredictable, it's live action, things are happening in front of you, and you don't know what's going to happen. With sideline reporting, sometimes you can craft a report and write that report maybe in your head better, because it's not always reacting to what's happening, right? If there's going to be some sideline reporters out here, which I know there's people that have sideline reporting, one of my best pieces of advice is when I'm talking about writing, maybe the first time as you're trying to get comfortable, write out full sentences what you want to say. Okay, so you have it written down one time, and then you know what you do with that? You crumble it up and you throw it away. And then what you do is then you take in your memory all of that you wrote down in full sentences, and you turn that into bullet points. Okay? And so then you're not memorizing what you want to say, but you also have a security blanket and a comfort level of, I've written this out once, so I know what I want to say. I have that comfort level. That's like I said, my security blanket. And then you know what's going to happen when you go from writing sentences out to bullet points. You know what's going to happen is you're going to get really good at ad-libbing all of a sudden. And you won't need all those notes for you to look at. When you start writing in your head, right? With play-by-play, I'll say this. This was a Mike Tirico trick. It's trying to come up with new words for the same action. He shot the ball, he released the ball, he attempted the three, there is a half a dozen ways that you can describe a three-point shot being taken, and that challenges you, with using different words and vocabulary. So that is one way to play-by-play, that you can take your running skills and challenge yourself in that way.
So right when the internet came out, we all watched the Boom Goes the Dynamite viral video. Have you all seen that one?
The what video?
This guy is announcing for his school and he completely chokes. And then at the last minute, he talks about some player making a jump shot and boom goes the dynamite.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Yes, yeah. So I was wondering, like, have you ever had a boom goes the dynamite moment, and like, how did you recover from something like that, like where you feel like you're choking in a high pressure moment?
No one asks, like tell about the moment you succeeded, you know? I find it fascinating. Just kidding. Local news. So in local news, if you guys watch your Milwaukee sportscast, you'll notice that sports don't get like as much time as news does, and that's pretty much the case everywhere across the country. So in Lansing, Michigan, it was a Saturday afternoon. We normally get like 3 minutes for sportscast. It was unusual because it was in the spring, so there was like baseball and softball high school districts, and so they actually gave me a lot more time. They gave me from like 3 minutes to like 9 minutes of content. It was amazing. I was so excited. Got to work at 8 a.m. and had like a small army of people helping me and shooting highlights at all these different places, these regional sites and stuff. And we came together, and I come to the desk, and I'm sitting next to the news anchor, and we do the sports tease. The sports tease is this is what's coming up, you know? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got basically like 9 minutes of content. We got this, and this. We were at 12 different sites. It's going to be amazing. And we get into the break, and there's a thunderstorm. And all of a sudden, you hear like this, woo, 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 and like the lights go out. And then they go back on. And I'm thinking, oh, that's not good. And our producer said, we lost everything except for your first tape. And, I have my IFB in my ear, and I'm like, excuse me, I don't think I heard that right. You said that we lost everything except my first tape. And he said, yeah, I mean, we've got like a couple graphics and stuff for like score updates and everything, but yeah, we didn't have your first tape. Okay, so at 5, 4, and I was sitting there and just very awkwardly went through this local sportscast. I had my first tape, and I knocked that out of the park, by the way. But beyond that, I still have not gone back to look at it. I have it in my personal archives, and it was so, like, I went home that night and I said, I'm quitting. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I would go out into the local, like, Lansing community, and people would say, you know what's bad when people are like, oh, I saw your sportscast. You know? And I got that for, like, a good, like, 2 weeks after that sportscast. But I actually went home, and because of the thunderstorm, there was a tree that had completely blown over, and it would have blown over into my apartment, but it blew the other way. So I looked at that as a sign from God that I was going to continue and continue what I was doing and grind it out through the day-to-day. So yeah, that's my Who Goes the Dynamite moment.
So you're having the opportunity now to do all these crazy things that like college kids like us dream of. Like the NCAA tournament, covering the Bucks. Are there still moments when you picture yourself and you're like, is this real?
Every day, yeah. I still get nervous every day doing something. And, I'll still stay involved in the spring. I'll do some college softball for Big Ten Network, and you can fit that into my schedule because I love doing it. I think it's a great TV sport, and I love doing it. I'll get as nervous doing a college softball game as I will doing an NCAA tournament game or doing an NBA playoff game coming up this weekend. And my mom always told me, that's good. I would have like little dance recitals when I was 3 or 4 years old. And she said, being nervous is a good thing because it means 2 things. It means you care, and it means you want to do well. And so I always kind of lean into that. Like, being nervous is not a bad thing, But yeah, it's not always like that. And I want people to realize that. Like, I get a lot of great opportunities now. But it's not after 10 years of waiting. It's not after, getting a $14,000 paycheck. It's not after working, 14-hour or 15-hour days, grinding it out and going to the parking lot and wondering, is it all worth it, kind of thing. So, whereas you guys see it, and it's great, and I love these moments and these opportunities that I have, but it just didn't happen overnight. And I want you guys to remember that, because both things will happen for all of you guys. The success, but it's not going to happen overnight. Oh, Scott, yes.
First of all, big fan. Can you talk a little about, you got into it with COVID and how it changed a lot of what you do, remotes, not being on site a lot, into that. That's kind of the way it's going to go.
Yeah, he wanted me to address when I talked about like the COVID shutdown, and I was doing more play-by-play games, but I was doing them from the studio off the monitor, and you see that more and more now with all kinds of sports. Soccer does a ton of calling off the monitor kind of stuff. I called the Tokyo Olympics. Cool, right? I was never in Tokyo. I was in Stamford, Connecticut, in a small little studio. I mean, cool that you actually got to call. I called men's and women's soccer from there, but was never in Tokyo. And it's still a great opportunity, and you'll take them, because it's, who gets to say that they call the Olympics. But it is a unique skill, and it does take, if you guys ever have an opportunity, I know we've got play-by-plays here, if you have an opportunity, have you guys called stuff off monitors yet, or is it all been live? You'll get your first monitor game, and it is challenging. You look for cues, like hair color, skin color. If you can't always see the numbers, who's got a wristband on their right arm? Watching warm-ups is actually really significant because you can write down. I literally would write down red socks, orange shoes, wristband on left elbow. And so those are the things that you have to, your cues that you have to know when you're not there, that you're picking up off the monitor. But yeah, to save money, it's remarkable the way that the industry is going. There are more and more games. I don't care if it's the NBA. There's some overseas international NBA games that are called from New York off the monitor. And so it is a skill that you guys are all going to have to try to develop, because it's going to happen to you guys too.
You said that your parents were a big influence in your life. I was just curious, have they listened to you, and then do they call you afterwards and say, well, you said this, and maybe, did they talk to you about that? They
listen to everything I do, from a field hockey game to, a Bucks game on Sunday, this past Sunday. They watch they still watch, they're both retired now, and they still watch everything I do. And it means the world to me, because I know someday, they write me a text actually, because they know that I'm usually busy after the games and stuff, but they always write a text. And it means the world to me, because I know someday there's going to be a day where I'm going to look at my phone and I won't get that mom and dad text. So I appreciate it when I do have it. It's for my dad that's very critical, things like, he need to get Giannis to speed up his free throw routine and all that stuff. But mostly it's just the presence, their presence of being there and watching and appreciating.
What has changed in your preparation since your first Bucks game to today? What's the key learnings, or what have you changed?
Yeah, great question. I think I spent just a lot of time trying to understand personnel more. I mean, it's a great thing. It's wild to say this, but NBA rosters are actually sometimes more consistent now than college rosters, the way that we're at. Would you kind of agree with that? I mean, there's so much turnover on the college side. It's not unusual for a guy to play 2-3 different schools now in his or her career. Excuse me. So getting to know and getting familiar with the NBA teams, because you're a part of it, year in and year out. I have spent less time, I would watch, and I still do, I watch every game of the opponent, the last game they play. Just to pick up what the broadcasters are talking about, storylines and that sort of thing. But then just simple things like, IDing two-way players or, and so I think it's less personnel prep and it's more now, I can dive into analytics or I can dive into more big picture stuff now. Because you just have this comfort level with the players on the team. Because other than like Luka and Anthony Davis, there's a few trades happening, but for the most part, the core players on all these NBA teams are staying pretty consistent.
Good. Oh, sorry, Kate.
Oh, that's okay. Just in asking about some of your kind of big moments you've been part of the broadcasting world. So the buzzer beater, Colorado State, Maryland, NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously really fun moment for the game and everything, but I think a lot of people just loved your call on that game and things you said. So how does it feel to be part of those moments? I mean, what are you feeling in those exciting times?
Yeah.
Like the fun things, right?
She was asking about the Colorado State Maryland buzzer beater this year for the NCAA tournament, which ended up being the only buzzer beater at the tournament, which is wild. I worked with Robbie Hummel and I worked with Jalen Rose this year, and we were saying our first round games, we had 4 games in one day, and our first round games were so bad. They were all blowouts, and we were like, we are due for Sunday for a close game or a buzzer beater game. And you never know what's going to happen in games, but we do have production meetings. And that morning, we were talking about our games, and Maryland's big story is the fact that this season they literally had 4 games that came down to basically a final shot in the last 10 seconds. So we were talking about having what we call a video package ready for the game to show all of their losses. And they had lost every single one. And it very much is a part of their story. And so we had that ready, and the Colorado State Maryland game literally comes down to the final 2 shots. And if you want me to get like nitty gritty, like dorky play-by-play, the Colorado State basket, there was still considerable time. So you can get excited about it, but it's not like the excitement of like your game-winning call, because you know that there's going to be something on Maryland's side, at least an attempt to try to win the game. Now, if Maryland had missed that shot and Colorado State ended up winning it, then your kind of all-in call comes in as the buzzer sounds, because that would have been a big moment for Colorado State. Maryland ended up winning it on a buzzer beater, and we had shown that video package that I told you about, that we talked about in the production meeting, maybe a minute before. So we had already kind of set the stage for everyone that here's a team that had lost, 4 games because of buzzer beaters. And so my call was, Maryland's on the right side of a buzzer beater, and the Terps are on to the Sweet 16. And I don't usually make a call that has a season storyline to it, but because we had just shown the video package and people got it, to me it just made sense. And it's something that you don't think about beforehand, you just react to it as it's happening. And I felt like it made sense, And then we lay out in the business, which means you don't say anything, and we just let Maryland celebrate. And I actually have not come back again to watch that call because I was happy with it at the time, and I know because it's out there, it's the only buzzer beater of the tournament. I know people have different opinions on it, but I don't care, and that's how I've grown because it was done, and I was happy with it. I thought we did it justice, and I don't have to go back and look at it, and I don't have to go back to look at the comments and see if people liked it or didn't like it. But the weird part about it is that we had another game 20 minutes right after that one ended. So you have to make that switch really, really quickly, which is not usually the case when you have a buzzer beating win and you have another game following it. But you did, you had to shift immediately, because 20 minutes later we were tipping for another game that night.
Thank you, Lisa. This has been incredible. We're extremely grateful for you giving up some time today. We know, I think you had 5 games in the past
We did.
7 days or something, and with the playoffs coming up, so we really appreciate it. So, I also want to say thank you again to Nancy and Megan for being here. And I also want to thank my teammates in the Teacher College of Communication, Joseline, Lauren, Callie, and Lily Fader, our new sports communication faculty members. Many of you may not realize this, but we start planning the Axthelm lecture in the fall, early in the fall, and so it is a long process, and so I'm very grateful for all of your help making this day happen. And then lastly, please join me in congratulating Mia and Matt, our 2025